All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Thanks everybody for attending. We're going to have some very substantive reports today. So with that, I've asked Paul Horner to lead us off with some of his mana'o as a welcoming type of protocol.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys. I hope you can hear my voice is kind of scratchy all the time now with this dry air up here. But with all the crazy stuff that's going on in the United States and around the world, all these wars and everything like that, I started searching when you asked me for something, a nice concept, and I came up with kahiao, the Hawaiian concept of selfless intent behind the act of giving or sharing, whether it's food, time, knowledge, or material possessions. And I did a little research. In Hawaiian tradition, kahiao was actually, they considered it to be a way of life, reflecting the value uh, that when one person prospers, we all prosper as a community. And it was seen as a powerful form of healing and connection and emotional well-being for both the giver and the receiver. So the practice of kahiao really strengthens relationships and builds community by promoting mutual support and shared prosperity. And it's not just about, simple act of generosity, but a continual practice of giving that nurtures a spirit of aloha at the same time. So that's my mana'o today.
Thank you. I wanted, I'm not sure, Paul, hopefully I'm using it in the right way, but I wanted to express my thanks to all of the board members who are selflessly giving of their time and effort. Everybody doesn't know how much time each and every one of you is putting into this effort. I, for one, see everything that all of you do, and I'm very thankful for your selfless giving back to our community. So, Paul, thank you very much for sharing that.
Thank you.
With that, we did receive, and you should have just received a copy of public comments. Emi Okawa, who is one of the tour operators, just recently sent us a letter, basically warning us of her concerns about there being too many visitors on the summit and the damage that may be occurring because of all of the Jeeps coming up to the summit. The letter is addressed to us, so I'm going to ask John, the staff, to share that letter. I don't know if Greg and his folks received it, but so we can share it, and then maybe the joint committee can figure out a joint response to Ms. Okawa. I don't think she's here to testify today, but she wrote a couple-page letter with some photos sharing her concerns. So we'll accept her comments. It's not on a particular agenda item, but she submitted as testimony to our authority meeting.
Chair, we will get that to the JMC and address that.
All right, thank you.
Chair, discussion, would it be appropriate to have at a future meeting, authority meeting, a presentation that summarizes all the commercial activity that's occurring on the mountain?
Okay, we can follow up on that.
Thank you.
John, Chair.
Yeah.
Yes.
In fact, the letter was related to the operational item 8A that I'll be talking about. It was in response to that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I'll provide a little bit more background later in the agenda.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, is there any proposed amendments to the minutes of September, for our September 9th, 2025 meeting? If not, if I could get a motion to approve the minutes.
Move approval.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay.
Chair, have we taken a roll of the board? Of the authority, I mean.
Oh, no. I mean, I have a role. I have a,
Oh, okay.
I have Mark II is here on the,
Oh, okay,
that I
okay,
can see on the screen,
okay.
right? Yeah, I've marked down on my agenda, those that have
Okay.
appeared on the screen. Okay,
And
with that, any,
Yeah, but, Chair?
Yeah.
Yeah, they also have to indicate if anybody else is in the room with them, if they're on video.
okay, can you all indicate by raising your hand that there is no one in the room with you other than yourselves? Thank you. With that, can I, all those in favor of approval of the minutes of our September 9th, 2025 meeting, say aye or raise your hand. Any opposed? No. Thank you. Unanimously carried. For the chair's report, I had two things that I wanted to raise with all of you today. The first is the creation of another pig. Paul and his committee, or his pig committee, came up with and developed a process for our executive director performance review, and suggested that we form another pig to establish specific criteria to investigate and research and develop specific criteria to recommend to all of you that would be used to evaluate our executive director, John DeFries. So I have asked Neil Hannes to, with your concurrence, of course, chair the pig and members, Pomai Bertelman and Ben Kudo. So I don't know if there's any discussion about creation of the pig. I'm sure that the pig will be reaching out to you, each of you, to get your manao about what the specific criteria should be. If not, if I could get a motion to create that pig to investigate, research, and develop specific criteria for evaluation of our executive director, John DeFries, and interface with management to implement the process.
So move, John.
You got a second? Thank you, Mr. Horner. Any further discussion? Not all in favor, aye. Raise right hand, left hand, whatever hand you want to raise. Any opposed? Thank you. Unanimously carried. On the legislative proposal, I wanted to kind of again summarize where we are. Over the year, we've had many discussions among us about specific items that need to be clarified in terms of Act 255. And I wanted to currently, there are 5 items that have kind of floated to the top in terms of issues that need to be clarified. The first item is to clarify that we will be transferred the properties involved. In other words, the property at Halepoaku, the Science Reserve, and the easement. That the intent, and I've researched this, the intent of the people that drafted the legislation was to have the property transferred to us by way of law, right? So what that means that on July 1st, 2028, we will automatically get title. What they've tried to do, and we need further clarifications, they tried to have the property transferred to us just like the property was transferred to the Kaho'olawe Island Reserve Commission. But we need further language to clarify that that was the intent of the original drafters of the law. So that's the first clarification, to clarify how we get the property that is involved in our efforts on July 1st, 2028. The second issue is an issue that has come up several times before. And the issue, again, having talked to the original drafters and legislators that advanced Act 255, deals with the issue of who has the authority to issue conservation use permits after July 1st, 2028. The original drafters intended that Mauna Kea Stewardship Oversight Authority have that authority. Inadvertently, Hawaii Revised Statutes 183C was not mentioned in the Act as a oversight. So the second issue that we are trying to seek clarification from the legislature is to clarify that in fact, on July 1st, 2028, the MKSOA will have that particular authority. The third issue is deals with the existing conservation use permits that have been issued to the University of Hawaii that deal with the observatories. As we've discussed on several occasions, we believe that if we have the authority to monitor, issue CDUPs post July 1st, 2028, there would be a conflict for us to actually hold those existing CDUPs that have been that regards to observatories. So what the proposed legislation does, it would transfer those CDUPs by way of law to the observatories, the actual users. So that is a different position that we took last year. Last year, we took the position that the existing CDUPs should remain with the University of Hawaii. Having heard some of the concerns of the University of Hawaii, we've come to the conclusion that it makes more sense for those CDUPs to be transferred to the particular observatories. The fourth issue deals with the current administrative rules, a master plan and management plan that the CMS and the University of Hawaii have adopted and implemented. As all of you know, we've hired consultants to assist us in creating our own master management plan, as well as dealing with the administrative rules. We are confident that the report and that the transfer will occur prior to July 1st, 2028, that we'll be able to develop those plans, create some of the administrative rules by July 1st, 2028. However, the process of adopting those master plans, the process itself to adopt the master plans and the administrative rules may be lengthening in nature. So what we are suggesting by the legislation is until we are able to adopt our own plans, we will be guided, as we are now, by the current UH administrative rules, master plan, and management plan. The reason why we put it in legislation is that even if we try to adopt the current UH plans now, we would have to go through public hearings, and even that process itself, even though it's already been adopted once by the university, the fact that we would adopt it would create, again, this big time delay in terms of adopting it. So we're asking the legislature, as we are creating our own plans, and as the properties are transferred over, the employees are transferred over, let us be guided by those university plans until we are able to finalize our own plans. And the fifth matter is just, again, a clarification. Currently, all of you have immunity for serving on the board, but it's not clear whether MKSOA as an entity has what they call sovereign immunity. So we are, I think, again, by way of just a clarification and a kind of a unintentional misstep, the original drafters failed to provide that MKSOA would have sovereign immunity. So that's the fifth one. So sovereign immunity means that would be given protection as a state agency and not subject to general types of lawsuits. So those are the 5 issues. I would open it up if anybody has any concerns or would like to discuss that. What we're doing now is we've just begun to circulate a bill that outlines the issues that I just talked about to various legislators that helped work with us and visited the Mauna and had conversations with to see what their concerns are. I just started to circulate to DLNR. We'll start circulating to the UH to get people's feedback about their concerns. So anyway, that's the process that we're engaged in currently. Any questions, concerns? So once we get those, the process is once we get those concerns heard, we may or may not change what our position is, depending on, we may clarify it, etc. But we'll bring back the final bill to all of you for final discussion and review once we get that reviewed. Okay?
Yeah, I'll
Go ahead.
just comment quickly that I appreciate the change, moving the CDUPs to the observatories and not trying to get them all to stay with UH. I do appreciate that change, so thank you.
Yeah, well, we specifically made that change, so and specifically identified those CDPs that should be moved to the observatories. Okay. Not no comments, no questions, concerns. If not, I'm going to move on. Neil.
Well, just one thing. Those are the items we want to have heard. Last time we didn't get a hearing of our items, so I assume we're also working on addressing the issues to make sure that they understand the prioritization, that these are priority items for us and that they need to be heard.
Yes, we're working on developing a strategy to ensure that they're at least heard. You know, part of it is that, you know, the legislature, we're getting pressure about being successful, and part of the message is that to be successful, some of these matters have to be clarified to allow us to be successful. So you, legislature, hold in your hands some of the issues that need to be resolved to allow us to be successful, to give you success, you, the legislature, success also.
Chair.
Oh, yes.
Can I also add the importance of those authority members who have turned out that are up for renewal too in that coming 2026 legislation? And there seems to be a growing sense that the federal shutdown of government may precipitate a special session of the Hawaii legislature. Yeah.
Right. So that shouldn't impact us. So let me explain what the issue is, right? There are 4 of us whose terms have expired. Noinoi Wong Wilson, Paul Horner, Rich Matsuda, and myself. The governor, under the statute, we can continue to hold over as members until such time as somebody else is appointed or the legislature convenes. The governor has not yet reappointed the 4 of us. One of the issues is if he were today to reappoint all of us, if there was a special session, the law requires the legislature to take our appointments up during that special session. If not, we would be part of the process in the regular session, right? I'm not sure what the strategy is. There is a strategy. I'm not sure what that is. But for whatever reason, the governor has chosen not to reappoint us at this time. So to John's point, even if there is a special session, our appointments, unless the governor appoints us prior to that special session, would not be taken up in that special session, but would rather be taken up in the regular session. Okay. Okay, if not, I'm going to move on to governance. Nothing to report on governance. So with that, I turn over from an administration standpoint to Executive DeFries, Executive Director DeFries, to make his report.
Thank you, Chair. Ordinarily, Bill Stormont would be first on the list with an office update. Bill is in transit, having departed the Native Hawaiian Convention here in Seattle. But to that end, in our offices at 688 Kino'ole, we are still awaiting a delivery date on the furniture package from our vendor. And we are working with the state IT department to get it wired. In the meantime, there are two banquet tables, one in Bill's office, one in mine, and he and I can function there with our laptops currently. Poor Anna remains at IFA thanks to the generosity of CMS. So we remain operational that way and are still moving forward on 688. The delay on the furniture package might have been exacerbated by my decision to decouple an installation proposal that was somewhere near $28,000 just to install it. We'll come up with a different installation package, but decided not to put out that kind of money for the installation of what amounts to being 6 workstations. The other thing I'd like to report on is that going back as far as 10 months, 11 months, we reported on the fact that we had a right of entry to the Bank of Hawaii building in the Kanoi Lehua industrial area. We have since decided that that building, even if it was upgraded, does not meet all of our needs, and therefore are preparing to release it back to DLNR. In the meantime, we are obligated to clean it and sanitize it. There is a increasing homeless problem there that has led to less than sanitary conditions on the property, and we are responsible for getting that cleaned. We have identified a vendor and will be shortly moving under contract to get that cleanup done. That's all I have to report on the interim offices. Any questions on that? Okay. In terms of the community talk story session, I thought, first of all, I want to thank Ka'io and the people at the Hawaiian Language School for providing that venue. One would hope we could have a venue like that everywhere we went, but it is indeed special. I thought the turnout was wonderful, and that we came away with some good feedback and insight, which continues to get compiled with the other 4 that we have done on the island. I know some of our board members were there, and I would open it for comment from you, Chair, or Neil, or Rich, or anybody that was there that might have an observation they want to share about that Hilo meeting.
I'll just say that we haven't sensed any sense of contention in these meetings. Lots of questions. We've been trying to kind of create the expectation that there are many pieces, components to the plan. The strategic framework is one piece, and then a management plan, which really affects the detailed operational, gives us the detailed operational guidance, is coming later. A lot of people want to jump right to that because that's kind of the end of the road, but we're trying to create that discipline to kind of stay at the high level. And at that high level, I think I've sensed a lot of unanimity. There's clearly, we honored, I think people appreciated, we honored the past input of the working group and the legislature in the draft that we have now, but there's a lot of questions and suggestions about how we can improve that for clarity and adding additional content and so forth. So that's going to be a task that we're going to look at soon.
Super, thank you. Any other board member relative to the Hilo meeting? Okay, if not, Waimea is confirmed on the 23rd of October. Let me emphasize that this is an encore presentation of the same format that we have used previously on the island, right up through the recent Hilo meeting. The reason we're going back to Waimea for an encore is the first time around, our meeting was competing with a major uh, Department of Hawaiian Homelands homestead meeting, Waimea Homestead. And so we were asked or I should say, the idea was validated by both Authority Member Matsuda and Bertelman that a return to Waimea would be recommended, and the staff fully supports that. So the 23rd, any and all board members that can make it would be appreciated. I think part of the success of the meetings has translated into the Q&A section as well, when board members who are present along with staff are made visible to all attendees. And I think that has helped convey a sense of commitment and unity among the people of the authority. So thank you to the board members who have been participating in it. And again, welcome everybody else. Any other questions on community meeting? If not, the next item was a update on the long-term transition working group. We're going to defer that agenda item. Member Kudo, who chairs that effort, is not with us today. And so we can anticipate and look forward to a more thorough update at next month's meeting. Any questions about the long-term working group? Okay, if not, I'm going to ask Christopher Daggett to provide an update on the consulting services for the development of our management plan. Chris?
Yes. Thank you, Executive Director. Just a quick recap on what was discussed at the last authority meeting to provide context for status updates today. So when we last spoke in September, the update there was that we had just had a kickoff meeting with Kua Wakea, which is the collective of planning firms and independent consultants rather, that are working on the development of the management plan. And so at that point, we had had the kickoff. As a reminder, there are 4 phases to their work, which has commenced and will complete at the end of next year. So the first phase is research and discovery, the second phase being planning and engagement, the third phase, management and strategic planning, and the fourth phase being transition. So we're more or less in those first couple phases, which is about research and engagement, right? So sort of developing that cultural acuity, if you will, for the development of the plan. So of note, as Authority Member Hannes had mentioned, a lot of people are anxious for us to jump straight into authoring the plan, but that part really won't commence until Q2 of next year. And so we have a certain discipline about how we're approaching that. So that's what we discussed at the last authority meeting. The status update for today, in other words, what has happened since then over the last month, is one is Kua Wakea has had a site visit of the Mauna, so hosted by CMS. That's one of the major updates, and that gave them the opportunity to learn about the operations, but also visit particular areas on Mauna Kea. 2, we had a workshop to look at what could possibly be reused from existing plans. So, for context, the existing plans are thousands of pages. We don't want to recreate things unnecessarily. So we've worked with some of the authority members to examine existing plans and look at what can be reused. That process will be iterative, meaning that we'll continue to do that in phases, but that has kicked off. And then the third major update is that the research task in phase 1 although they began before the kickoff, they're continuing on. And so those are the updates. Now, in terms of the updates for next month or what you can expect us to report on, over the next month, what we'll be working on is one, there's an upcoming workshop on October the 22nd. So during this workshop is going to be the first review of some of the research tasks, right? So in other words, Ku'u Wakea is tasked with developing the management plan, but ultimately it's going to be the authority that decides what those deliverables look like. And so this will be the first of many reviews, but this is particularly on some of the research tasks that they're doing. So that'll happen on October 22nd. The second update is we'll continue to re-examine what can be reused. So again, this will be an iterative process where we're looking at things, existing plans and what can be reused and not be recreated. And then the final thing that we're exploring right now, it hasn't been agendized, is that potentially for the next authority meeting, we will have Ku'u Wakea show up, and that way they can meet all the authority members. And also provide a visual timeline of their work going forward. That is the updates. I'll pass it back to you, Executive DeFries, unless there's any questions.
Chris, thank you for that
Not so
update.
much for you, Chris, but when you said that our session was on the 22nd, it reminded John. Did you say that our community meeting in Waimea is on the 24th? Did I mishear?
23rd. Yeah.
It's on the
23rd.
23rd. I just want to make sure those dates are correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
Evening meeting on the 23rd in Waimea, and preceding that is our half-day meeting.
That's correct. And Neil, that brings up a good point
for the workshop.
Yeah, that brings up a good point. For some of you, I will be reaching out in the next couple of days to plan the logistics around that, because we basically have back-to-back days.
Any other questions about the update on the management plan? Thank you, Chris. Item D has to do with the Native Hawaiian Convention that's convened by what used to be called the Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement, which today has been rebranded as the Hawaiian Council. Member Noinoe Wong Wilson was in attendance here, as well as Neil Hannes, and Bill Stormont and myself represented staff as well. The agenda, this year's agenda for the convention did not include Mauna Kea or the Mauna Kea Authority. But upon arrival, member Noinoe Wong Wilson and our facilitator, Mahina Paishan, arrived early enough to have a special session organized and publicized, which resulted day before yesterday in a meeting that was attended by Neil Hannes, Noinoe Wong Wilson, myself, Bill Stormont, and the Mahina Paishan Duart, that enabled us to basically replicate the format that we have been using on the island at the various community talk stories. On top of that, we had two additional members of Ku'u Wakea, Mahina Paishan being one of them, but the other two were Malia Kaihui and Rebecca Soon. The count that I took, if I took out the consultants and authority members or authority staff, there are roughly about 25 people there, including former Governor Wahe'e. And I'm going to stop at that point and ask Neil to kind of weigh in on his observations of that particular session, as well, Neil, as the broader observations you made about the convention in general.
Well, the Hawaiian community is certainly moving, and I think some of this interesting, it raises an interesting question about our work in planning and community outreach. There was data shared that recognized that I think there's about 750,000 Hawaiians around the world, this planet, and 53% of them live outside of the continent. Other than this outreach and maybe through our website and so forth, I'm not sure if we have a strategy for reaching people in the diaspora, but that's something that we might want to talk about in the management planning meetings. I found it also interesting that in addition to Governor Waihe'e, who came in and was as a guest and just participated as a regular community member, so did Alapaki Nahaleʻa, former regent chair, Sylvia Hussey, former OHA executive who participated in the working group, and Brickwood Galateri, albeit he came in toward the end, briefly a current sitting trustee of the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. So there was it was rather last minute. There were many competing things going on in the convention, but we did have a full packed couple rooms and really active participation.
Thank you. You know, the other thing is I was grateful that one of the keynote speakers was OHA Board Chairman Kai Kahele, and I counted roughly about at least six trustees of the Office of Hawaiian Affairs here, giving us an opportunity to again extend our gratitude for relinquishing the lawsuits. And prior to Chairman Kahele departing the resort this morning, I had a chance to meet with him briefly to tentatively plan to meet when he's back in Hilo to talk about potential next steps. The chairman delivered a wonderful keynote speech that was followed by Governor Waihe'e. There's something to say about this particular convention for the first time convening on lands that are native owned, tribal lands, and lands that have been converted into various commercial enterprises involving multiple hotels, a major casino, as well as retail outlets, school systems, you name it. The convention adjourned at 9 o'clock Hawaii time today, and was filled with protocols both from the Hawaii delegation of leaders from the Hawaiian Council as well as leaders from the Tulalip tribe. And, if you were here, you could witness kind of a unique sense that doesn't come when this convention is taking place in our own hotels in Hawaii. And so, yeah, it was a special occasion. I'm certainly glad we were able to attend. Obviously, a lot of curiosity about Mauna Kea, whether it was in the session or offline at some of the other events. And so, the president of CNHA, Kuhio Lewis, assured me that at next year's convention, he plans on elevating the Mauna Kea Authority and the issues that we face as an authority as part of the formal agenda for next year when the event will return to Hawaii. I believe it's going back into Waikiki on it, but I'll be happy to answer any. Oh, one more thing. I just saw member Ryan Kanakaole on the screen, and I did have a chance to briefly chat with Director Dawn Chang. She had arrived on day 2 yesterday. Yeah, and one of the things we discussed was the upcoming visit by WAM, which is scheduled for November 6th. which I told her that I would be coordinating directly through you to make sure that there's some coordination between what will be presented at that meeting. The WAM agenda is pretty specific, and I think between DLNR, the authority, and CMS, we've got about 15 minutes. So, but so we're going to have to structure that correctly, and I, and Greg may have a comment on that on behalf of UH in his update. But Ryan, I'll make it a point to contact you and make sure we're on the same page about it.
Thank you. And so I'm finalizing our presentation slides now for Chair Chang's review. I will, once I get comments back from her, I'll send you our pre-final, and then you can kind of go through that and we can coordinate further.
Okay, Chris Daggett and I will be working on that. We anticipate that typically with such a visit, 15 days prior, I think, is kind of what they use as they haven't stated it in writing yet, but we're anticipating that formality will be there where our presentations will be required to be submitted 15 days prior to that event. And now November 6th. So, okay.
John, can I add two additional thoughts
Sure.
to this? I've been working around the Hawaiian community for a long time and at meetings like these, and it was a little bit disturbing. I didn't actually read the article, but that headline article in the Star Advertiser that federal recognition sparks debate, and and so forth. Division was the furthest thing from people's minds and attitudes and behavior here. This was about unity, man. I mean, I've seen it in past discussions, where, oh, you Hawaiians who left, you left, the resources of the legacies and trusts, belong to us who stayed back. None of that exists anymore. It is gone. And unifying with other people, other Native peoples and other people in other enterprise of other backgrounds. It was a strong theme of unity, and there was a strong theme of cultural uplift.
Yeah.
We had Paul Sibbets, the writer for Chief of War there, talking about taking our story to that cinematic, platform. We had Patrick Mukaani's epic of Hi'iaka as a Broadway style stage musical. We saw the first half of that. It's really taking culture and integrating it and uplifting it and making other things better, making a musical better, making, cinema better, making, for us, when do we make astronomy better? Because we're uplifting culture and integrating it in real powerful ways and getting past the divisions that have been the source of tension and really stalemate to where it's about enrichment. And then we're talking about us and our MKSOA and our work in particular, but I thought we felt really a part of that theme, those couple of themes. Anyway, that was my takeaway.
Well said, Member Hannes, because and it was clear that headline was also problematic for the CEO, Kuhio Lewis, who qualified much the way you did in his opening remarks the following day, that this was not about cultivating an us and them. In fact, part of the whole rebranding of the Hawaiian Council is about Native Hawaiians advancing for all of Hawaii, right? And so that was the power, the shift that you could feel here. And I think the fact that it was an event that almost took place in a native cocoon because the Tulalip tribe had essentially found a Pacific cousin, right? That they could embrace and host. And so, no, I was terribly. You could feel the shifting of gears in that way, and you felt that in this closing ceremony, which itself was very powerful. Part of that whole closing was Mayor Bisson and his family performing, and much to the delight of everyone that was here. And you're beginning to see how these organizations, DHHL, OHA, coming together, and also the unified reaction about the threat to the admissions policy at the Kamehameha schools. So well, all of that and the issues like Pahakuloa, all of that beginning to galvanize Hawaiians in a way that you sense is preparing to respond in a constructive manner as opposed to separating ourselves from the issue and going off into a corner. No, I was extremely inspired by what we saw here today. So this past 3 days, any questions about the convention? Okay, hearing none. Let's see, the next agenda item, Mr. Chair, if you're okay, we'll move to item 7A in finance and ask our interim ASO, Lloyd, to file his report.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. As you see in your packet, we had to submit a financial report that had not much information due to the fact of the timing of when this statement had to go out with the board packet and the closing of the account at the Department of Accounting Services. So I was told that I can now provide additional information at this meeting. So what we have there posted on screen is the additional information on the financial statements that I've been having as a report of importance. Again, you know, we do have an appropriation for this fiscal year of $14 million. Approximately 1.4 million or so was restricted, so we have $12.6 million available. I did add a second page of the report. What that is, it shows the state accounting method in which we could have, the word is used, encumber. We reserved last year's funds to be able to use for contracts that we assigned last year. So the entire amount is now utilizing last year's funds for this year's operations, for the consultant services, the attorney's fees, and some other minor items. And then I also included on the bottom what we also have a reserve for this year's funds already. So next year, these funds would not be lost. And that's the information I have there. So we're utilizing as much as we can with our appropriations, and we're safeguarding those amounts as much as we can. Any questions to what I just reported?
Lloyd, can you go back to the previous page? I just noticed that for August, the total is less than payroll. You want to check?
I'm sorry. What's your question?
Yeah, so the July seems to number add up. For the August one, the lower portion, you see payroll is 73K and the total is 53K.
Oh, we made an adjustment on that also. Yeah. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Any further questions of Lloyd? Okay, hearing none. We'll move on to the next item. Greg?
Yeah, thank you. And aloha, everyone. Nice to see you.
Oh, great. We do have the testifier in the room.
Oh.
Do you want to let her go before?
Yeah,
you
yeah,
really get into
yeah.
it?
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, Emmy, you can go ahead. You have 2 minutes.
Emmy, this is John Comegi, the chair. We have circulated your testimony to all members of the authority prior to this meeting. So thank you for submitting that testimony.
Aloha, everyone. Oh,
Hi,
thank
Emmy, you can go ahead. You have 2 minutes.
Okay, so my name is Emmy. I am one of
Emmy,
the.
this is John Comegi, the chair. We have circulated your testimony
You
to
too,
all
you too.
members of the authority prior to this
Okay.
meeting. So thank you
Aloha,
for
everyone.
submitting that testimony.
Sure. Aloha, everyone.
Hi, Emmy, you can go ahead. You have 2 minutes.
Okay, so my name is Emmy. I am one of
Emmy,
the.
this is John Comegi, the chair. We have circulated your testimony
You
to all
too.
members of the.
Yes, so mute her YouTube.
Yeah. Okay, close your YouTube window and then speak.
Okay, can you hear now? Okay. So. Okay, sorry. So I am one of the tour operator for Mauna Kea over 35 years to carry the tourists over up to the summit. And recently I went to tour guides at the sunset of the top of the Mauna, and then I see a lot of Jeep rent-a-car is all over the space. And then this is a totally, I'm looking at kind of heartbroken because we kind of protect the mountains so for a long time. So then seems like over tourism at the Mauna for all the way top from everywhere I seen a Jeep rental. So I think the other ranger was really working hard at the point for 4x4 points. And then this takes a lot of time to explain to the other rental people. And then also working so hard. And sometimes I see the small children running around is at top of the summit. And our Hawaiian children, we are not allowed to go up so much. For school, kids cannot go up. But some other country kids are going up, and then they really, we cannot stop. That's really a kind of question too. And then also this is situation is totally like gone for beyond the control. Many visitors do not understanding about the alternative seat, and especially the families, and also the mountain is not only for the highest points. We have to respect for the cultures. So I think it's totally, we need to do something for as soon as possible. I also wrote it to the email for, because my testimony a little bit longer. So thank you. I truly appreciate for decision of CMS and rangers, and humbly ask for authority to clear the guideline, and then also protect the mountain and spirit as more concerning. Thank you so much for.
Thank you, Emmy. Thank you for your testimony and for bringing the concern to us. If you turn on your YouTube now, Executive Director Greg Chun will be giving a report addressing some of your concerns later in today's meeting. Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other testimony? Hearing none, Director Chan?
Okay, thank you. So aloha kako, nice to see everyone. Yeah, I had asked to agendize an update for you folks on the visitor traffic situation, particularly at sunset hours prior to Emmy submitting her testimony. But her testimony, I think, outlined some of the major issues that that we're challenged by. In the last several months, we've noticed uptick in visitor traffic during the sunset hours. A lot of it seems to be related to rental car companies really pushing the rentals of their four-wheel drive Jeeps. In addition to that, we believe, and we're trying to track this, well, we know, and we are trying to track this, that there are private touro type companies who are also individuals renting four-wheel drive vehicles on their own. We're not able to determine who's who and who may be doing that, but we have noticed on social media advertisements and whatnot, marketing by some of these private companies. On some nights, the car counts, vehicle counts have been in excess of 100 vehicles at the summit. So we've had to provide extra ranger services, staffing to help monitor and manage the traffic situation up there. The issues raised by Emmy, I think are felt by other commercial tour operators who feel like they are being kind of squeezed out of the mountain because of the volume of vehicles up there. In some cases, it literally takes hours for people to go through the line, get their safety briefing and whatnot before they're actually allowed to go up. So we're working, Nahua and Rodrigo are working on looking at some alternatives to address some of the commercial tour operator needs in terms of providing them a space where they can park their vehicles, drop off their customers where they acclimate and whatnot before they take their groups up. They do a real service in terms of being able to provide a lot of the safety briefing and other information to their customers that otherwise many visitors, the FITs, don't get except from our rangers. So we're working on looking at some options to create space for the commercial tour operators. But the real issue is, and the reason why I wanted to bring this up here was to say that I think will be important in your development of your management plan to really take a look at how visitor traffic in general, it's not just commercial tour operators, but visitor traffic in general is to be managed. As I've shared in other meetings, we have looked at various systems, a shuttle system like they have out in Haena. We've looked at reservation systems like they have at Haunama Bay. We've looked at charging a fee. All of those things require resources that we don't have right now. And we're reluctant to move forward on any of those also because anything we did at this point, we would want the authority to be a full partner in helping us develop that solution and making sure it fits within the context of your management plan. So the purpose of my raising this at this point was to advocate that this particular issue is highlighted as an area of focus for your management planning team or your management plan development team. And you know, we're certainly willing and able to share all the information that we've collected over time as to what we think some of those options could look like. So it was just a report I wanted to make on this particular issue, not asking for any action or decision at this point. Are there any questions?
Greg, thanks for bringing it. I can assure you that having participated in the workshops, that capacity of just visitors in general is one of the things that the management group, the consultant is working on. But we
Great.
appreciate your offer of assistance.
Yeah.
And I think we appreciate Emmy coming forward with her testimony and apprising us of the problem.
Yeah. She initially called Nahua, and we actually told her this was something was going to be I was going to report on at this meeting. So she took that as an opportunity to submit her testimony.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, Greg, if you can proceed with the, I don't know,
Okay.
John or Greg is on the Joint Management Committee.
Yeah,
issue.
I'll introduce this next topic. So as you folks know, we've been working on the environmental assessment for the decommissioning of the underground fuel tanks at Halepohaku. We now have a draft of that environmental assessment. Joining us today to provide a brief overview are Rodrigo, our General Manager of the Mauna Kea Shared Services, along with Kristen Dunn and Andrew Hood from our consultant team who's working on the environmental assessment. I just want to before I turn it over to Rodrigo and Andrew and Kristen, I just want to describe how we typically handle these kinds of reviews. This is a large project, as you know, and a little bit more technical than many of the things that we or the observatories often want to do or need to do. So what we typically do with something like this is provide the information in a short overview briefing to our advisory groups and give them a month to review the document before we come back and ask for their formal recommendations or actions. So that's what we're doing with you folks. We have presented it to Kahuku-Mauna. We have presented it to the Mauna Kea Management Board, and we are presenting it this afternoon to our Environment Committee as well. And then we'll come back to all of the groups, including you folks, next month for formal input and action. So today is just to introduce you to the document itself and the process that we've gone through to get to this point. So with that, I'll turn it over to Rodrigo.
Mahalo, Greg. Aloha kako. As Greg mentioned, this is a project that we have already presented the proposal to this group as well as our other internal review committees. The project consists of removing the 3 existing underground storage tanks located at Halepohaku to meet with DOH's new environmental regulations and to replace them with 2 above ground fuel storage tanks. As part of the project, when the project was presented to OCCL, they requested we conducted an environmental assessment. And that's where Sustainable Resources Group International comes in. They are the contractor that is performing the EA. And I'll just hand it over to Christine and Andrew to give an overview of the EA process and the document that has been shared with all of you for you to review.
Aloha, good morning. My name is Andy Hood. I'm with Sustainable Resources Group, as Rodrigo said. Also on this Zoom is Kristen Doohan, our firm's president. As Rodrigo said, we're preparing an EA pursuant to Chapter 343 for the replacement of the 3 underground storage tanks up at Halepohaku. The purpose of removing these is regulatory compliance with the underground storage tank laws. That's the primary driver, and these tanks throughout the state have to be upgraded by 2028. A secondary regulatory driver in this is that during initial outreach to Office of Conservation and Coastal Lands, the MKSS and CMS were directed to prepare an EA in order to secure a conservation district use permit since the area is in conservation zone land. Subsequent to that and concurrent to while the EA was being prepared, OCCL reversed that decision that a CDUP is not required, but CMS will be required to do a site approval plan instead, since the EA is being prepared. Brief overview of the project itself. There's 3 existing underground storage tanks and transmission lines and dispensary for fuel up at the site. They have a cumulative total of storage of 18,000 gallons of fuel. Those tanks and the transmission lines will be excavated and removed and backfilled with native material and planted with appropriate native vegetation. The tanks will be replaced with 2 above ground storage tanks, which are more cost effective, and they have a built-in dispenser so that there won't have to be transmission lines installed to fuel up the vehicles up on the site. The replacement from the 3 underground storage tanks to the 2 above ground will result in a net reduction of 12,000 gallons of fuel being stored up at the site. To date, the leak detection equipment installed on the tanks and transmission lines has shown no leaks during the use of those tanks. During the removal of the tanks, hydrocarbon sniffing equipment will be used to detect and verify that no spills were encountered. If in fact there is any presence of hydrocarbons outside of the tanks and transmission lines, remediation activities will ensue, which will be determined at that time. It's not anticipated that that will be the issue that will occur. The main objective of the EA is to evaluate the potential impacts on the environment, which is inclusive of the ecology and natural resources and cultural resources. To date, the EA has shown that there won't be any significant impacts from the project. There will be an impact that there will be periods of loud noise when the construction equipment's up there. But it should be minor increase in decibel levels off-site to off-site uses, etc. Let's see. In conjunction with developing the EA, we prepared an archaeological monitoring plan that is going through a 30-day internal review process right now. And after that's completed, that will be submitted to SHPD for approval. We've also conducted additional outreach in the manner of a Kapa'akai analysis to various community members with an emphasis on cultural practitioners that may use the area or are known to use the area. There's been no additional feedback from those folks or input that the project will have effect on their ability to practice cultural practices up there. And so at present, the EA is in an internal draft form for review for 30 days. Once it's received, we'll address comments and make edits to the draft environmental assessment. After that's completed, the draft EA will be distributed to the community and to agencies for review and comment. After that's received, we'll go back and address those comments and edits, and then we'll submit the final EA in anticipation of receiving a FONSI. And I believe that's kind of the salient points of where we're at in the process. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to address those.
Yeah, and just to add that the archaeological monitoring plan is, the draft of that is attached as an appendix to the draft EA. So you should have that to review as well when you're reviewing the EA. So, and that will not be sent to SHPD or OHA until after kind of this internal committee review. and we get your comments and feedback and incorporate that.
Any question, my board members? Authority members, I'm sorry. All right, well, thank you for presenting, and we'll take a look and provide you with our comments and our ideas.
Great, appreciate that.
Thank you. Thanks to both of you.
Thank
And
you.
Rodrigo, thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Thank Kristen.
Sure.
Okay, item B2, in ways of an update, Greg Chan and I are directly involved in discussions that we hope to finalize within the next week to 10 days in terms of what proposals on cost sharing we will bring back to the authority. My intent is to get those proposals in front of the performance and oversight PIG no later than 10 days from today, in preparation for a recommendation to be made to the full authority at our November meeting. In the meantime, Greg has his hierarchy to also go back to and make sure that we end up in the same range of proposals. As we've discussed before, the financial variables that have happened with NSF, and the ripple effect that's having on the mountain and various observatories has produced the need for some added time, but we will get there, and I will get the proposals to the PIG no later than 10 days from today. Greg, do you have any comment?
No, you covered it. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions from authority members? If not, Mr. Chair, we can move to the next item.
Okay, so Act 255 has asked us to weigh in on basically the issue of where the Institute for Astronomy should be physically located. But we're way short of coming to that recommendation, but we thought it would be very helpful to all of you if we asked the director, Doug Simons, to present to you so you have a better understanding of the Institute for Astronomy, what it does, where it does what it does, and his thoughts about the issue. So with that, I turn it over to Dr. Simons.
Hello, Chair. I'm going to try and screen share on my end, so hang on just a second. Let's see. First of all, welcome to the Institute for Astronomy as a host for your meetings. I was a ways off during your last one. Executive Director DeFries contacted me not too long ago about potentially using this site, and I'm happy to provide this as a resource for MKSOA, either here in the library, we have about a capacity of 20 or so, or down in the auditorium, which can fit about 60 or so. And happy to have in an office here as well. So while you guys are getting settled down in your new digs, we're happy to help out with arrangements here to try and make a smooth transition. As Chair Komeiji mentioned, there is this clause in Act 255 referencing basically a request for an assessment for MKSOA regarding the location of IFA's facilities on Manoa. And on my end, I've had some internal discussions about that. And basically, I'm going to try and provide you a little overview about what we do at the IFA. But in addition to that, set that up or sort of frame the question that you all have been posed with in terms of making some sort of an assessment, I guess, back to the state of Hawaii about how we within the IFA should be distributed between our various sites. So the first part of this presentation is really just sort of background information. Some of you may have seen before, otherwise not. We are one of the more distributed programs at UH with building at Manoa, right next to Manoa Marketplace. That's about a 50,000 square foot building built back in the 70s. You see there on the bottom there, IFA Maui, we call it ATRC, so that's in Pukolani, upcountry Maui. It's about a 20,000 square foot building, and that's the base facility for our operations on Haleakala. And then the building we are in here, IFA Hilo, it's about a 35,000 square foot building, built around 2000 with a variety of uses that have sort of accumulated over the years. And since we're here in this building, I thought it'd be useful to give you a sense of the range of activity that occurs here. It's pretty busy in the morning, a little quieter in the afternoon, and then busy again towards the end of the day. And this graphic attempts to capture the really remarkable range of support work, research, education, et cetera, that we do here in this building. Of course, research and education is our mission at the Institute, but we also host the Center for Market Stewardship, as you're aware. I kind of flip the paradigm a little bit. I have the IFA directorate here in Hilo as opposed to Manoa, and I shuttle back and forth as required weekly. We have the New Space Science and Engineering Initiative based here at the IFA Hilo building that I think we mentioned before. So that's 5 faculty members from College of Engineering here. Kind of the theme to this building amongst the IFA buildings on various islands is technology development. I'll go into that a little bit more later on. We are host to 3 sets of telescope operations, UCART, IRTF, and the 88-inch. Of course, we have grad students here, about 6 to 8, I think, right now, from the 40 or so that are overall in our program. We work closely with UH Hilo Astronomy. In fact, our faculty here teach a number of the classes here on the UH Hilo campus. Each IFA building here, Maui and Oahu, has their own dedicated outreach staff. And of course, Rodrigo and his team with Mauna Kea Shared Services is also hosted in this building. So compared to the other buildings on the street, which are very much focused on observatory operations, we have a little of everything going on in this building. And I guess it's a problem. It's a good problem to have. I'm stuffed to the gills at this point. And we're looking to try and add on to this building with a new space science and engineering building, basically to host that program next door. We're in the middle of doing a design study for that. So lots going on. Nonetheless, happy to host you here during your monthly meetings. We also, of course, have research facilities on Mauna Kea and Haleakala, and actually over on, to a limited extent, over on Mauna Loa as well. So it all adds up to a fairly large program. And my platinum status on Hawaiian Airlines that I accumulate rapidly, given all the shuttling back and forth that I do to try and keep up with all the activity. I provide on an annual basis per Act 255 an update on some of what I call our research project. This is just derived from the last one, so I will submit to you another one next month or in December. About 300 papers published last year from IFA faculty and students, so we're pushing roughly a paper per day. And about half of that is based upon Mauna Kea observatory data, and about a third of that is driven by our graduate students. So our grad students really rely heavily on Mauna Kea for their research. And that's one of the key distinctions compared to some of the, shall we say, big name schools, say Harvard or MIT or Princeton. The graduate students here have unique access compared to almost any other university research program in astronomy in the world. And that makes them super competitive with getting really good jobs after they graduate from IFA. And as a proud graduate of the Institute for Astronomy, I'm a product of that unique facet of the research potential here and the education potential here. So a little bit about our education program. We now have Bachelor of Science and Bachelor of Arts programs, undergraduate level in astronomy, about 100 students altogether. That is hosted over at Manoa. And of course, we have master's and PhD programs as well. So you see pictures of lots of students. This is a slightly out-of-date picture showing the distribution through about 4 or 5 years ago of physics and astronomy undergraduate students that have enrolled in the program. It's also kind of neat in that you can come in as a graduate student and be based at any of the 3 locations. Most students choose to get their first 2 years at IFA Manoa for their coursework, and then they will either stay there for the rest of their PhD work or go to Maui or Hilo, depending on where their faculty located, their advisors are located, or the opportunities are located. We have about 200 grad students over the 50-year history of that. This screen that's scrolling shows you a list of all the grads that have emerged from here. I'm proud of where we all kind of spread out over our, after we got our degrees here, including leadership roles at NASA, NSF, and beyond. We have at least 170 people altogether when you add them up, staff, faculty, grad students, and temps. And back of the envelope, about a $30 million per year budget. 2/3 of that is extramural, and almost all of that is NSF and NASA that provide sponsorship, including key sponsorship for our operations. I'll go quickly through IFA research, which basically spans the gamut of topics in astronomy. To most and the public, they probably see a lot of domes on the some amount of Mauna white domes, silver domes, and I think that they're all kind of doing the same thing. But over the 40 years or so I've been involved in Mauna Kea astronomy, watched it get diversified and specialized between these various research facilities. And there's a tremendous amount of collaboration, both technical and scientific, between all these facilities. This is one of the biggest distinctions amongst all co-located observatories worldwide, is the diversity of research that Mauna Kea can't support, ranging from radio and microwave research over here with JCMT, CSO with DCOM, by the way, as was Okokea. Wide field cameras, some of the largest digital cameras in the world, between Subaru, CFHT, and UCUR, and some of the best high resolution imaging possible is with the Keck twin telescopes. Gemini North is the most sensitive infrared telescope from 1 to 10 microns on the surface of the Earth. So really amazing instrumentation and a lot of neat research that you can do between those various telescopes. And just as a reminder, IFA also oversees activities on Haleakala. It's a much smaller area. It's about 18 acres. So much higher sort of density of facilities. The most recent addition being Pan-STARRS, which is a $400 million state-of-the-art solar telescope that is sponsored by the National Science Foundation. This is where DoD operates their facilities. There are no DoD facilities on Mauna Kea at all. This is the Maui Space Surveillance Complex. You can actually see the telescope. The dome actually kind of folds down like a camping cup, if you will. It's a 3.5 meter telescope that is basically designed to track satellites going overhead and allow you to take very high resolution pictures of them to see what they're doing, I guess. Okay, so lots of fantastic research, exoplanets. That may be our number one field right now with new faculty and a lot of students involved in exoplanet research. It's been better part of $100 million of investment over the past 5 to 7 years on Mauna Kea, new instrumentation to support that. We are at the IFA, the number one site for detecting what we call near-Earth objects as part of the NASA Planetary Defense Program. So most of these so-called killer asteroids, to use a Hollywood term, are first of all detected by IFA facilities here in Hawaii and other ones that we operate in Chile, South Africa, and La Palma. Also, solar system research is very big at IFA as well, given our operation of the NASA facilities over on Mauna Kea. A lot of work in supernova remnants, pulsating stars, kind of a neat press release about that recently. And we have a very strong cosmology team that has done a lot of groundbreaking work in terms of studying what we call large-scale structure in the universe. So these are the largest sort of collections of galaxies that we can identify, not just in terms of discovering them, but actually in this case, figuring out how they're moving in various streams across a large fraction of the universe. I mentioned before, we do a lot of technology development in this building alone. You know me, I'm a kind of half engineer, half astronomer, so I really enjoy this aspect of the institute, which is again kind of unique for most astronomy programs. It's kind of a cool picture. This shows roughly 35, 40 years or so of infrared array development work at IFA. It's one of our biggest contributions to the field of astronomy. That little device there back in 1985, I think I actually used that as a graduate student. I first got here in '86. It had all of 32 by 32 pixels, which may sound small today, but back then that was a big boost from 1 by 1 pixel, which had been state of the art for about 20 years in infrared astronomy. Today, thanks to the work done here and with our partners at Teledyne, the largest infrared focal planes that are commercially available, or 4K on the side, have a technology sort of lineage back literally to this building. And we're also developing next gen 1 and 2K, we call avalanche photodiode arrays that will have extraordinary activity. So these are being used in instruments worldwide. There's a little time-lapse movie of the first one of these being used in a big instrument, the Canon France Hawaiʻi telescope, and they're completing a big exoplanet survey there. And we're super proud that 15 of these Hawaiʻi 2 RG sensors are on board the James Webb Space Telescope, the most expensive and sophisticated astronomy satellite ever built. Also have a history of developing really large focal planes. Jerry Lupino there, who passed away about a part of a decade ago, helped start this in our program. Essentially, we were able to figure out how to stitch together lots of individual mosaic sensors and build up big digital focal planes. You see John Tonry there with the 1.4 billion pixel camera. There are a pair of those over in the Pan-STARRS facilities on Haleakala. And those have provided, I believe, the largest in terms of petabytes of database in all of astronomy. That's a big statement, literally in all of astronomy. Chris Van Beranek here in the building is leading the robotic AO program that is in final stages of being commissioned at the UH 88-inch. And that's a unique facility that can do we call sort of rapid cadence adaptive optics, or really high resolution imaging of objects in the sky. And you saw Mark Chen in that previous picture. He is working with an industrial partner in Europe to bring the first adaptive secondary mirrors to the facilities on Mauna Kea. I'm super proud of this as well. The first one went over on the NASA Infrared Telescope facility. We're about to receive the next one here in this building, I think either this month or next month, and that will go on the UH 2.2 meter telescope. That is the oldest telescope on the mountain. It also has, will have very soon, the most sophisticated electro-optics on the mountain between the robotic AO system and the adaptive secondary mirror and the infrared sensors that we're deploying on that. And here's pictures of graduate students seeing the very first diffraction limited high resolution images recorded at IRTF. Those two young ladies are going to be extremely sought in the field. They have unique knowledge that's going to be applicable to observatories around the world. Lots of community work that we do as well across our 3 sites. You see Astro Day that we host in Kona and Hilo twice a year. So this is a collaboration between all the observatories, basically STEM organizations all across the island here. Over on Maui, High Star is our signature program. Once every summer, we get together with a whole bunch of high school students, and they're basically taught how to process data and prepare for either the capstone projects or science fairs across Maui, and they've done extremely well in their research as students. And of course, the Mauna Kea Scholar Program, which is now fully hosted here at the Institute for Astronomy, which provides students across the state research access to the observatories on Mauna Kea. There's a recent shot from last school year over at Molokai. You see Mary Beth Lachek on the right there. In fact, to her right, that student is the younger brother of the first cohort, a member of the first cohort of Mauna Kea scholars on Molokai about 3 or 4 years ago. So all in the family there over on Molokai. The reaction that we get, obviously, particularly at these small rural schools, is unique. And a shot from Kapolei High School kids who were visited us last spring. So we shuttle lots of students back and forth. In fact, Mary Beth was texting me this morning. She's brought up a whole bunch of teachers from Waiakea, Kealakea, et cetera. She's up at NASA RTF telescope right now with those teachers. This is a Mauna Kea awards program last year at Waipahu High School, in which you see Mila Rexford receiving an award for her work in researching the so-called red square planetary nebula. I'm going to skip forward through the actual video here just for the sake of time, but she received a $10,000 scholarship and through the program is now majoring in astronomy here at Hilo. So it's the impact of this program for students across the
Mauna Kea Scholars Program is
amazing. So with that as background, I am going to dedicate the last bit of this presentation to the issue at hand, and that is the question of whether or not Ife Manoa should be relocated to Hawaii Island. As you can imagine, this is not a new question. I have been asked this standing in line at the airport, at KTA. There's lots of interest in how what I'll call the benefits per se of the State of Hawaii's astronomy program are distributed around. So this is going to kind of be the world according to Doug, which I throw out there. It's always kind of a scary place, but this is kind of how I view it. First, I like to kind of change the paradigm because I think there's the popular notion that the benefit is going in a sense to IFA or UH. From my standpoint as the IFA director and someone who's lived most of my life in Hawaii, got my degree at UH, I view it as my role is to lead the Hawaii State Astronomy Program. And in simple terms, in one sentence, what occurs is that, as I say here, in exchange for providing Mauna Kea and Haleakala access to various governments around the world, the state of Hawaii has provided access to observatories sponsored by those governments, enabling the state's astronomy program. This is not a new idea. In Chile, the same model is used. There are numerous Chilean universities that get observing time, typically 10%. From essentially all the observatories built in Chile. There's no way that the government of Chile could afford those facilities, no way that the government of the state of Hawaii could afford these observatories. Similar to Spain, they play host on La Palma to international observatories, and I believe Spanish observatories get 20% of the observing time in exchange for that. So it's not a federal arrangement, it's a state arrangement, but it's a common one used by governments around the world. So quite naturally, that state program is hosted by the State University, UH. And in my words, UH is the institution tasked with creating a program that broadly benefits the state and is part of a strategy envisioned decades ago by Governor Burns to leverage Hawaii's natural resources to increase our global presence and value while benefiting the people of Hawaii. At least that is how I view my job to lead the IFA. It's a nod back to the original vision of Governor Burns. So linking Act 255 to sort of past and future, here's the front page of that bill that basically led to all of us being here today. There are a couple of statements in there that when I thought through this situation, I naturally connected. One is the statement we mentioned before, but you can read it yourself now. So it's conduct an assessment on whether the University of Hawaii School of Astronomy should be relocated in whole or in part to the University of Hawaii at Hilo. So a little bit of a misstatement. We aren't the School of Astronomy. We're actually what's called an organized research unit, but the intent is clear. And the other statement in there that's been mentioned before that is profoundly impactful, and I think it's on the kuleana of this board, this authority to decide how to interpret it, and that is it is declared that the support of astronomy consistent with Section 1 is a policy of the state. I remember quite distinctly when House Bill 2024, which was the predecessor to Act 255, first had this language in it. And what came to mind actually was how this language is really a derivative of previous language derived by the legislature, and that was a long time ago. This is a shot in sort of my file archives of Governor Burns at Halipahaku in 1964, and that is, I believe, the original Halipahaku, the real Halipahaku, not the place with the fancy food and Wi-Fi and what have you. He was about to lead a delegation of over 100 people and giving a speech there by Halipahaku. And at that point, the road had just been established and no pavement, as you can imagine. And the observatory was actually just an observatory test site that Alika Herring, the native Hawaiian who literally with his homemade telescope discovered summit of Mauna Kea as the best place ever really for observing the cosmos. And he gave a speech there, and not long thereafter, there was this article in the Honolulu Advertiser that I was given years ago. And first of all, I was dead impressed that Governor Burns had a science advisory committee. I don't know of any governor that has an advisory committee. Obviously, I'm biased, but that was, I think, really ingenious on his part to have the input of scientists to guide him on how Hawaii in those sort of early days after Hawaii became a state to sort of fashion their strategies. And the only thing I'm going to call out now, you all will have, or you already have the PDFs of this, so you can read the article. But I know that it says the committee also should help develop, quote, action programs to make the bright new world of science a beneficial reality to Hawaii's people. And you see that theme recurring in the emerging sort of strategy of the early Hawaii state government. Not long afterwards, that speech at HP, Reso 16, SCR 16 was passed, and I have a scan of that that I pasted in here, and I won't drag you through the whole Reso, but in essence, this is the long version of that one statement in Act 255. And the bit that I wanted to share with you, which again, I think captures the governor's philosophy at the time, says, whereas the state of Hawaii and its citizenry are most desirous and willing to cooperate and aid in the promotion of our nation's space program and research to the benefit of the county of Hawaii, the state, and the nation now therefore. So he kind of calls it out to the benefit of Hawaii Island, to the entire state and essentially to the entire world. So with that in mind, this sort of evolution from Senate Concurrent Resolution 16 a long time ago to what we now know as Act 255. For me, that's essentially just a restatement of an approved bit of legislation long ago. It is the kuleana, I believe, of the Mauna Kea Authority Board to re-envision under Act 255. But I think it's important that this context be set and understood as you go through that process with your own planning program. So central to this policy, though, is the intended benefit to the state's astronomy program for everyone. That is how I run the IFA, and that is how I believe it was intended to be run. And I personally would like to see have that underlying sort of philosophy going forward. So historically, most of that benefit has gone to the residents of Oahu, Maui, and Hawaii Island. The sites of those three buildings. We have observatories on two of those three islands as well. But I would like to see those benefits go even beyond that. And the reason I showed you the Mauna Kea Scholars Program is because when we came up with this program 10 years ago, I wasn't thinking about, this is before Act 255. The reason we created the first program to be truly statewide is because of, the underlying philosophy that our kids everywhere should benefit. So these are the schools over the history of the program that have participated in it. About a dozen overall, and we're over 1,300 students that have participated. So I point this out as if we have this as a philosophy and envisioning the future of Hawaii astronomy, the state's astronomy program, there are ways to extend benefit that aren't necessarily high cost, but have high impact. And I say that from personal experience. When we go to Molokai or Lanai, those kids have never, ever had access to these sorts of opportunities. And it is amazing, particularly for them to be able to come over and see Mauna Kea for the first time. A lot of them, it's the first time they've even been in an airplane. And it's a thrill for myself and others to be able to make that possible. I want to see this program go forward for various reasons. And at some point, there's going to be a negotiation for observing time for the University of Hawaii. And I've said it many times privately, and I'll say it to you, that I would like to see some fraction of the observing time from these telescopes dedicated through new leases to students statewide. So we are a multi-island program. It naturally evolved that way. Started out that first building at Manoa. Mauna Kea Shared Services, had a different name back then, was basically in the old industrial area of Hilo for years and years. And then the Maui program emerged. It actually started prior to IFA Manoa, but got an uplift or an upgrade there over time. And as I say there, beyond the enormous logistical and programmatic and legal challenges, there are a lot of issues if we were to try and actually move IFA Manoa to Hilo. Legal ones, the starters, the IFA faculty would have to vote in favor of it under their contract. We would need a new facility on this campus. That's a 50,000 square foot building. That will cost tens of millions of dollars to put on this campus. So we're going to get the money. It's basically going to temporarily break the Institute for Astronomy, in my opinion, if we were to do this. So I will lay those issues out, but for me, it's more an issue of what do we want to see in terms of the future for the state of Hawaii's astronomy program. Do you want to see it distributed across the state or concentrated on one or two islands for their kind of specific benefit? We have naturally expanded across 3 islands, and my strong preference is that expansion be supported consistent with the vision for astronomy dating back to Governor Burns and in the future where you all would like to see the program go. So I end it on that note. In the end, it really does come down in my mind to a decision of who should benefit and whose vision should we follow. These are weighty issues for the Mauna Kea Authority to address. I think Governor Burns got it right. And I'm going to continue to try and establish benefit statewide within the resources and extent that I can for our astronomy program. Okay, so with that, I hope I've given you a little bit of information that you can use usefully in your assessment. I'm here as a resource as always, not hard to find if you want more information. I assume you're going to have to provide something back to the legislature in terms of your assessment. But in any case, I always appreciate the opportunity to direct the group, and I'm eager to share my mana'o and learn from yours going forward. Mahalo.
Thank you, Director Simons. Questions, members? Can we go back to the screen where I can see them? I can't see the members, so I can.
John, this is Bonnie.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just would comment that I have some different opinions than Doug, but we land in the same place. And so when the time comes, when the authority is ready to discuss, obviously I've got a lot to say on this one. I won't burden you with it today.
All right. Poena, can we get back to the screen where we can show all the members?
That's I think that might be on your computer because we're showing that's not something I have control over.
Okay.
This is YouTube.
Anybody have questions? Ask your question because I cannot see you.
I have several, but I'm going to ask them one at a time to make sure other people have an opportunity. Doug, thank you for that presentation. It was really illuminating. And I appreciate that sense of gratitude and respect you have for the vision at launch of Governor Burns. It's frightening that I was actually around then too. And science, I guess, was a bright new world. But we're in 2020, and I want to respect the Governor Burns' vision, but the world is different now. There's more in it. In 1960, our culture was pretty much forgotten, our host culture here. In 2020, as we talked about earlier with Chief of War and major plays and the advancements, it's really alive and has been revived. So what's the bright new world today that you would build an astronomy future around?
Yeah, so that's why I specifically said we have the Kuleana, actually you have the Kuleana to re-envision the program. I felt it was important because that history isn't necessarily widely understood, that we have that context for understanding kind of the setting in which the current astronomy program was launched. So there are different aspects to it. I will kind of refer back to the last few slides and the presentation I've been giving lately in the sense of an opportunity for, call it mutual support and uplift between indigenous science, indigenous culture, and contemporary science. I think that is a unique opportunity for us that in Hawaii, we should be able to not just build off of that, but really be an example for other indigenous populations in which there is conflict, to be blunt, between big telescopes and indigenous folks. So that is an area that I think is ripe for the 2025 era that we're in right now. That I agree totally wasn't even thinkable. I suspect I wasn't there. I was born in '62. I'll date myself, so I didn't have the opportunity to witness it. But that's a big one that is new. Another one. I'm quite passionate about the educational opportunities that these facilities represent. They are on their face, the most scientifically productive collection of telescopes in the world. There's lots of ways to demonstrate that. I've always felt that from a local educational standpoint, they had the potential to be as transformative in what they represent to our local kids as the research that is being done. And if you let that kind of sink in, that's kind of a hell of a statement. But that is my assessment, that if we put our minds and our resources to it, and because I've worked with a lot of students, I'm convinced that there should be a strong emphasis going forward on these telescopes enabling future generations. This simply wasn't the high level priority that I felt it could have been in the past. So that's a shining light, if you will, in 2025. That's different than the 1960s, where we were in a space race with the Russians, right? That was kind of the setting. And obviously, the new technologies that are available now, which were completely unthinkable. The infrared arrays that I told you about, the big cameras, technology, as you're well aware, is growing exponentially in terms of capability and complexity. The prospect for paradigm shifting research, that too is a strong term, from Mauna Kea, if we allow those facilities to go forward and be upgraded with those new technologies, that too is something that everybody should bear in mind, that potential because of the rapid expansion of high-tech capabilities today that wasn't in place in the '60s. That's a shining light too in my mind. I don't know if that answered your question, but off the top of my head, those are 3 new things.
Well, it sounds like a great start of a discussion that I hope we have opportunities to continue, but I'll let my other peers jump in.
I'd enjoy that.
Others? I have a more immediate question, I guess, Doug. How has the president's proposed budget impacted your potentially impacting your budget? I know that it's still under negotiation within the House and Senate.
Yeah, the potential is devastating if the proposed cuts go in place. You may have heard me mention 2/3 of my budget is NASA and NSF. Almost all of my graduate students are funded through NASA and NSF grants. So it's 40 students, and they are, I think, in the most vulnerable state, and they are, an incredibly precious component of our program. So amongst all the things I worry about, John, is our grads, with potential for those grants not being allowed to go forward. Obviously, with the drama of the federal shutdown and various threats being tossed around in terms of knock-on effects. While I feel that there's strong support in the Senate and reasonably strong support in the House for pushing back on the administration's budget, I'm also aware of the potential for ramming forward that budget in any case. I mean, that's absolutely a possibility. So I'm worried about it. Today at the IFA, what we've mostly noticed is a slowdown in the distribution of grants that have already been approved. In other words, the cash isn't flowing as normal. We are still able to, with the cash in place, keep our programs going. But it is a little alarming that we're starting to see that effect from what's going on in Washington. If there's a silver lining to any of it, that planetary defense program that I mentioned, that sponsors 8 UH telescopes. And that was basically spared under the Trump administration's proposed NASA budget. If we had lost that, that would have been absolutely devastating to the Institute.
Thank you. Other questions? Neil, you have any other questions? Otherwise, as you mentioned, this is the start of a discussion. So it was good that Doug could provide us some of the grounding and some of the basic facts about the history, the initial intent, as well as what they currently do.
Omai has a question.
Yeah.
Aloha nui, Doug. Mahalo nui for your presentation today, and also mahalo nui for your presentation last Thursday in Waimea. Really appreciate that. My question is with regards to the 13 schools that you folks are currently working with right now. My first question is, how long did it take IFA to be able to get to that point to work with the 13? And then what is IFA's current plan to potentially expand the frequency of other schools?
Yeah, great questions. So that program started when I was at director of Canada France Hawaiʻi Telescope. Started at 2 schools, Waikea and Kapolei, I think it was 2015, 2016. It's kind of a wild experiment to put high schoolers at the cockpit of an F-16 jet. We doubled the program every year in terms of number of telescopes available for the next 2 or 3 years. Now all the observatories provide observing time, and several on Maui as well. We have relied on private donations. Hawaiʻi Community Foundation has been very generous to help us out. Takes money to fly all their students back and forth, and that's an important part for the program to allow them to do that. So we were pretty much going full speed, Omai, in about 3 or 4 years from the very first two schools as the pilot program. We have made our goal that we wanted in every high school in the state. So that's about 40 or 45 schools. So we're like a fourth of the way there. To do that requires additional sponsorship. Now that you mentioned, I've tried twice to get some legislation through to expand the program and provide the additional resources needed to hire some more people to organize it all. I may or may not try a third time, but that's basically what is standing between us and our goal of having that in literally every high school in the state of Hawaii. We have observing capacity. We need boots on the ground and funding to basically allow these students to shuttle back and forth and participate fully in the program.
I can verify Doug's passionate plea to the legislature over the past couple of sessions.
Passionate and unsuccessful.
And he ended up in the same place that we did. So sorry, Doug.
Mahalo nui for that. I do have a follow-up question, if you don't mind. I wonder, and thank you for laying that out. It's exciting to see education of all types, and certainly STEM expand in Hawaii, and our students and become kama'aina too, right? So my follow-up question is, in the model that you folks have created, what is your mechanism for cultural and indigenous integration and knowledge into the program, and how often do the students interface with that type of knowledge?
Yeah, great question. In the first sort of 5 years or so, it was mostly via partnership with Kahakula and Imiloa, and Kalepa Babayan was our point, right? He it's basically a dual component program. So every school would receive Kalepa, and he had the big star compass they would lay out, and Kalepa was such an enthusiastic teacher. More recently, we have not been able to sustain that. I very much want to bring that aspect of the Mauna Kea Scholars Program back to life. That's an area where we need additional resources and expertise. And if you have ideas, I'm very open to trying to bring it back. But to be candid, we relied heavily on Kalepa, and we kind of lost that part of our program when Kalepa passed away.
Mahalo nui for sharing that, and I appreciate your our love and aloha for that man. He's absolutely integral to a lot of the movement that is taking place now. And so with that, I would say that in the acronym of STEAM, there is the opportunity for, well, let me just dial that back. There is always the opportunity for us to be able to understand how to engage our students more holistically and to become kama'aina to the intelligence that is on Aina and that has the capacity to enhance holistic learning. And so I really appreciate you taking my questions, Doug. Thank you so much. And thank you for the presentation again. Mahalo.
Thank you, both of you. Other question? Any other question?
I'll do one follow-up and then call it a day. Doug, planning for the future, your thinking needs to be about where's the puck going to be? And when I think about how fast technology is advancing, and as well as I think our transparent desire that you see even embedded in the legislation to recognize the spirituality and sensitivity of this space. What research is happening there now that doesn't need to happen in that space? That advances of technology may allow it to either come down from the mountain or maybe go up into space. Where's it? How's that developing, and what do we forecast?
Yeah, it's a hard one to it's always hard to forecast discovery, so to speak. The way ground-based and what we call space-based astronomy has evolved over decades is to avoid duplication and synergistically provide research opportunity that the other part of the overall program can't provide. So I get asked a lot about James Webb Space Telescope, for example. What are they doing there that you cannot do from the ground, and the inverse as well? And in that case, Webb does some things that are just phenomenal, but it's also an infrared telescope. It has a limited wavelength range over which you can observe objects. The picture that I showed of the summit of Mauna Kea, we have the last wide field ultraviolet sensitive camera in all of astronomy on Mauna Kea right now. Okay, so that's a unique capability that we don't want to lose, obviously. Let me reframe a little bit. What are some of the things that I think might be coming up that are unique to Mauna Kea? Let me try to answer that because I have a better sense. You may recall the pictures a few years ago of Hawaiʻi, the first black hole images that were released. And two of the observatories on Mauna Kea were central to the big global interferometer, the Event Horizon Telescope that created that. Less widely known in Asia, there's an analog to that. And Hawaii, given its longitude in the middle of the Pacific, is an enabler for this what we call very high frequency, super high resolution imaging at radio wavelengths. Essentially, you're turning, you've got a baseline the size of the entire planet Earth. Without that, you lose a tremendous amount of resolution or research capacity. So just fortuitously, because we are in the middle of Pacific, between the Asia programs and the continental North America, South America programs, we directly feed into that and support it in very important ways. Also not widely known, it's kind of we call it a holy grail, but there have been attempts over the years to tie all the telescopes of Mauna Kea together as one giant interferometer, basically, big telescope. That has been attempted with different technologies on and off for several decades. There is emerging right now, I think it'll start next year, there's a funded sort of prototype using advanced fibers that will start to tie together Mauna Kea observatories for the first time to act essentially as very large observatories in terms of their sort of spatial resolution. No other telescopes around in the world can provide in principle what we could on Mauna Kea if that technology emerges. So those are two areas, Neil, where I can foresee certainly at least plausible, if not probable, research opportunities that are uniquely possible thanks to Mauna Kea and just the existing telescopes up there right now. It's harder for me to figure out, okay, what can you bring down in terms of technology? There's obviously some duplication, but there's also so many advantages to Mauna Kea in terms of its site properties and the technologies there. I'd have to think more about what you might be able to sort of pair out, which I think is the core of your question. I'm happy to do that offline if you like.
Yeah, I think there are more discussions, all kinds of discussions we can have offline, but thank you very much. I appreciate your response.
Others that might have questions? Thanks, Doug. Thanks for a very informative presentation. I think we all learned a lot on your presentations, and we look forward to further discussions, both generally and specifically as to IFA, and we'll make sure that Bonnie gets her time also. Okay, with that, that ends our agenda for today. Announcements. Our next meeting is on November 13th. So we'll be sending out an email again, making sure that we have quorum and all of your attendance. We've also talked already about our community meeting in Waimea on October 23rd. For those of you that can attend, please attend. They're really important that we reach out to the community, and much of the community wants to meet you and know who all of you are. So with that, I open it up for any other announcements. If not, thank you, everybody. Thanks, Greg and your team and the team that presented the EA work done so far. And thanks again to Doug. If that's all we have, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Wait,
What's that?
we lost quorum. We've been in informational since Paul left, so.
Okay, so we've been adjourned.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks everybody.
Thanks, everybody.